where we created a cultural house, the UK's first, in Skegness with our partners at East Lindsey District Council and Magna Vitae. There's 4 of us today that will be presenting to you. Myself, Sean, I'm Regional Director at Alliance. I manage the project on Alliance's behalf. We have the Chief Exec of Magna Vitae, who are the operators of the theatre, James Brindle. We have Jens, who is the Artistic Director and CEO of Helsingør Theatre. He'll say it properly when he comes on. And Andy Newman, a director at LK2 Architects, who did the design work and acted as lead designer, both through the bidding stage and through the construction of our project. So we're going to run through a few things. We're going to go through some background with Jens about what a cultural house is and his experiences in Denmark. James is going to run through how the concept was created and then hand it over to Andy, who developed the brief to our builders. And then I'm going to run through how the bid was developed and how we constructed the cultural house. And then at the end, James and Jens are going to run through some of the successes and challenges of the cultural house, particularly in Skegness, but in the wider context as well. And then we have time for some questions and answers at the end. So without further ado, I shall hand over to Jens to introduce himself.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jens Frimand Hansen. I'm the Artistic Director of Helsingør Theatre and also of So Festival in Skegness. And I got the easy question, what is a culture house? It's we have many things to say about it actually, but I can just generally talk about the experience of Helsingør, which is considered to be a very successful way of building a culture house, which have had a huge impact on the whole local community. And it's also important to say that actually, although I'm just the director, although I'm the director of a theater, it's actually an association, meaning that we are not connected to a house as such, but we have access to the culture house. And in a way, you can say that the whole success in Helsingør, it's something that hasn't really directly affected us, but the fact that you have been building a culture house and all the activities around it has actually have a huge importance of the whole development of Helsingør as a town in the whole region. Helsingør is I would actually like to start with a little anecdote by the German former Chancellor Helmut Schmidt, who was also the mayor of Hamburg, and he basically lived almost all his life in Hamburg. He died, I think, about 10 years ago. And he had a dream of becoming an architect, but he never really managed because of the war. But architecture played a huge role in his whole career. And he was actually asked the same question, what is a culture house? And the first thing he said was that a culture house is not something that is actually defined by architects, but by the people. That it's important to say that you can have as many architectural ambitions about creating a very nice building. But what is important is how it relates to the actual people involved in the whole communities. And for him, the most important thing was, and this interview with him was in a time where there was putting a lot of investments into the harbor of Hamburg, and actually to transform it into becoming a cultural city also. But he was quite critical against it because it was very much a project for architects and by architects. And for him, what was really important was to do something where the people were not much more involved. And he was speaking a lot about the importance of the representation of the town council, the churches, and all these houses for him was much more important buildings in Hamburg than trying to artificially build a culture house, basically coming from ambitions of some of the architects. In Helsingør, we have what I think is really interesting. What has happened is that Helsingør is a very historical town, and all the epochs of the town are actually built into to the ambition of creating a culture house in Helsingør. The photo you see now is from the second big epoch, you can say, which is the industrial area. After we had the tariffs, which we lived off from many years, like almost 500 years, suddenly they disappeared because of some wars were settled around Europe, and then we moved into an industrial period where there was built a big shipyard in Helsingør, and it was one of the big working places in the area. And you can see that it's much bigger than the castle, actually, the castle of Kronborg, which has kind of the original story that connects Helsingør to the rest of the world, which of course is the Shakespeare Hamlet story, and which is actually the reason for many tourists to go and come visit Helsingør. And if we move on to the next photo, this photo is from around, from after all of the cultural buildings have been built in the harbor area of Helsingør, where also the outside area of the castle have been renovated. The shipyard is completely gone and has turned into a culture house, which is where you can see the gray area in the middle. Behind that is the actual culture house. And but it's not only that, because it's actually a manifestation of the many epochs of Helsingør that the people living there relates to a lot, because it's an old historical town, and all the different time period are very manifest around Helsingør. So on one hand, the culture house is a product of the castle because it relates to that. It's also a product of the maritime history. There's actually also been built a maritime museum in the harbor area. It also relates to the city of Helsingør, which is very close by. It also relates to the shipyard, as the shipyard is actually part of the building where the culture house has been built. And it also relates to Sweden, as when you sit in the culture house, you directly look to Sweden. So in that sense, it's actually a condensation of everything that has happened historically in Helsingør, and that everybody relates to some way or another. The fact in Helsingør is that some people think that it's still a shipyard town. Some people still think that it's the town of Hamlet, and Helsingør has many identities in it. But with this investment in the whole harbor area with culture and with culture house in a very central position, all of these different identities of Helsingør have been recognized, which is really something that is has been very important. And it also means that in the beginning, of course, there was a lot of criticism. Should we spend so much money about culture and all these discussions we also had? But today these discussions are completely gone. Everybody recognizes that it was a good investment, and there are hardly any criticism anymore. And what has actually happened is that we had an increase in tourism by 50%, which is the biggest in Denmark. And as I said, also we have a more consensual attitude towards culture, meaning that everybody recognizes that culture plays a central role in Helsingør, and also that the culture is the future driver for development. And by that I mean that in Helsingør we don't have many business, we don't have any factories, we have very little businesses. But today, a lot of people are depending actually on the culture, especially from the tourists, and it means that also the politicians are now recognizing that culture is actually the driver for development in Helsingør. And we just employed a new director of the harbor, and he had a cultural background. It's not a guy who knows about logistics and all other kinds of stuff, but it's actually a guy who has a background in culture and who knows how culture operates in order to give them good facilities. And just one last point from me is that on the two photos you see here, on the top photo, it's actually another town in Denmark that has also been developing the harbor area, but with apartments and with a small marina. And it means actually that they cannot in any way show the same figures as we can in Helsingør, in terms of the harbor has basically become privatized. And which means that it's not so much a place where the public are coming by themselves. And at the bottom you see Helsingør. It can be a little bit difficult to see, but it's a big rock concert on the harbor, and it's completely full, and everybody is having a good time. And that is basically what it somehow is all about. One last thing can be about the way it has been financed, because it's not privatized. Also, the whole renovation of the harbor area have been cost around 250 million pounds, I would say, and roughly 1/4 is paid by the local municipality, 1/4 is paid by private funds, 1/4 is paid by a strategic fund in Helsingør, eller in Denmark, a national strategic city development fund, and 1/4 is paid by private investments in it. And this is also a really success story, that you manage to get a really spread out way of funding, because you are accommodating a lot of different interests. It's not just a one string model. It's a model where you actually try to bring in as much as possible around the identity around Helsingør. And a lot of people want to invest in that. And yeah, that's my 10 minutes for now. So if you have a question, of course, I'll be around.
Thank you, Jens. So we're going to hand over to James.
Thank you, Sean. Take control. Right. Thank you everyone for taking the time to join us today. We really appreciate and value your time. My name's James Brindle. I'm incredibly proud to be the Chief Executive of Magnavitae, which is a leisure and cultural trust based in East Lincolnshire. I'm also the Director for Community Leisure UK's cultural stream, Chairman of the Coastal Culture Network for England, and a previous member of the Arts Council Super Area Board in the Midlands. But this is sort of around about how culture has led me to a journey, and I was lucky enough to meet Jens and a colleague of Jens's around 15 years ago, a gentleman called Paul Vitting, and I then was very much in the sports sphere and hugely enjoyed that place and that work in sports development and the development of sporting facilities. But working with Jens and Paul, they showed me the power of cultural buildings and the power of projects that inspired those buildings and were developed from them, and also the power of involving people and democratizing culture, allowing people within individual communities to take ownership and pride in projects that they could be inspired in and they could gain inspiration from. So here is our culture house that Andy and Sean have brilliantly delivered for us. It is it's a place that's not just a transactional theatre. It's a place that the community can improve their health, it can learn and develop skills, and actually be creative for creativity's sake. Because if you think creatively, you solve many problems within a community, and you also start many conversations that can help that individual community. And I absolutely think part of the overall arching element of a culture house is the ability to work in partnership and do things differently in partnership, and don't be afraid to actually use that partnership to change things and disrupt the current system and disrupt the current operating processes. So why? In our area of Lincolnshire, we have relatively low educational attainment. We've got poor levels of physical activity and overall health outcomes. We've got levels of isolation, youth disaffection, and an ageing population with growing care needs, and also a population that sometimes feels that they're on the edge, as many communities on the coast do, and they feel marginalised for that reason. So, having worked with Jens and Paul, I believe for a number of years that a new way of looking at culture and a new way of what cultural projects could do for communities could not only meet some of the challenges that are on this slide, but also inspire communities to be really proud of their place. Because if you're not proud of a place, you won't invest in it, and you won't want to develop it and improve your own space. So how we work at Magna Vita, I've got a brilliant team that work in the areas that we deliver. And obviously I would say that, but I firmly believe my team at Magna are absolutely superb, and they're very good at looking at things differently. What we want to do is improve health and educational through cultural activities. Now, that's hard to do in traditional structures. You know, this organisation does that, this organisation does this. But if you look here at a very disruptive slide, so apology for that, but smash the system. If you look to break what's already there and try and re-engage and deliver something in a different way, and look at a way of delivery through partnership, openness and trust, you can actually develop something incredibly special. And that's where that democratization of the project goes, making sure you involve your community in the design, in the workup, in the operational systems, and what that building delivers. Because if they are invested in something, they will use it, they will be inspired from it, and hopefully they will gain even more from it. So it's a place of learning, togetherness, and health improvement. It's really clean to understand that. And what I think it's really clear, again, as I said before, it's a different way of doing things. It's involved in that inspired by that Scandinavian model of openness and democratization, but it also uses creativity to look at solving different problems and putting different projects within our culture house that really does not only be culturally significant, as our partners, the Arts Council, would very much like, but also solves other problems within the community and gives other opportunities for those elements of the community. So here we go, under one roof in our fantastic culture house. So we've got a theatre, a transactional theatre. We've got started to work with the Young Technicians Academy, looking at skills and job development and opportunities for young people. We're working with the Lincolnshire Music Service, again, looking at opportunities for young people, not only to play or learn how to play instruments, but learn how to be part of the music business itself. We have our MPO, our National Portfolio Organisation, Arts Council funded So Festival, which is an outdoor street arts theatre festival that Jens and his team curate and develop so brilliantly each year. It took us 10 years, but eventually we became a partner of the Royal Shakespeare Company. Now that's fantastic status, and it's something that I take great personal pride in. But it allows the community to know that a place like Skegness can have partnerships with a world-class partner, literally a world-class blue chip partner, the most famous theatre company on the planet. But it's beyond that partnership. It's the literacy work that the Royal Shakespeare Company that does for me that's particularly inspiring. They go out into our local schools around the Culture House. They look at the educational attainment, and within those local primary schools and soon to be secondary schools through a 10-year plan, they look to confront some of those literacy issues, some of those low levels of literacy. And what could be a better partner to working with schools, looking at CPD of teachers and working with the kids to actually improve literacy. And we talk about economic development, but there can be no greater intervention than improving the literacy levels in an area with incredibly low literacy levels to allow those young people to become more economically active. And it has to be said, the RSC were inspired by some of the initial drawings and work that Sean and Andy created, and that got that conversation going and allowed us to get that deal over the line. And I think that's a prime example of where culture houses and partnerships can actually come together to inspire another organisation to join. The bottom logo is from Storytellers, which is another MPO in the area, and we work very closely with them at development work within the local sector, skills development, upskilling, training of local artists, producers, and teachers to make sure we continue to grow that infrastructure, because what we want is this house, this cultural house, to be a venue of inspiration and economic activity, as well as those health and educational outcomes. So the venue delivers arts on prescription to a certain degree. We're starting to increase this now, looking at interventions around mental health. We have a cafe facility where we open up on a Sunday and look to engage people in sort of conversations, avoiding loneliness, and it's a piece of work that will continue to develop in the coming months and years. Again, we have our So Festival, really important development work, and only last week the Cultural House was privileged to host the Lincolnshire Creative Careers Week activity. Again, another example of how the venue can multitask from an Arts Council funded project into something that hopefully inspires our young people to have incredible creative careers and creative thinking. Again, our partnership with the Royal Shakespeare Company that talks again more about the inspiration and confidence that this brings to our community and our young people, but it is a blue chip partner in a venue that again has been inspired and delivered by the local community. Lincolnshire, the Technical Academy, looking to develop digital skills, creativity opportunities with local schools and colleges, again to foster that conversation that the careers in the creative industry are a real thing. And if you involve your community, young people at a young age, they want to be part of the industry and they want to be creative. There are no more creative thinkers in our communities than our next generations. And to be able to give them opportunities to use the space, again, is an immense privilege. Lincolnshire Music Service I've briefly touched on, but it's a place again where we can get intergenerational work of parents, grandparents, relatives, seeing fantastic concerts being made, where we can see early years interventions around first stages into musical appreciation happening. And it's something that again is incredibly important, and another string in the bow of the Culture House and its design and its flexibility that our colleagues at LK2 and Alliance help us to achieve. Storytellers I've talked again is our other MPO, again a more of a developmental MPO around sectoral development skills, improving training, CPD. But again, as you can see, all these different partnerships, all these different elements of the house allow us to bring together different parts of our community for different reasons, but all for the benefit of the community. And all of those conversations started with the community about what they wanted to see in their place and space and what ambitions that they wanted to have. Again, what we also hope it to be is to be a hub for other interesting and exciting developments within our local community. So we're looking to smaller local venues. We're looking at smaller local projects. So we've got Spilsby and Sutton-on-Sea, which are buildings, Live and Local, which is interventions into really small rural settings, and Orchestras Live, which is bringing orchestral work to some of our schools and more rural communities. But all these things now are using the Cultural House as the hub, and there more and more activity is coming from the Culture House because of those partnerships, because of those conversations with the community, and because the community are really valuing the building. And I think that's incredibly important to remember, that value and that democratization of where we want to go. And what I would say, we put a lot of time in working with partnerships. We put a lot of time into have conversations. We don't just say people are partners. We make sure that if they are a partner of Magna Vitae and the Culture House, we invest time in them, we invest support. It's based on trust, and that's what makes it work for us. And that's what's created a wonderful and inspiring building that we have today. And I think as well, when we talk about partnerships, initially the relationship with Jens and Paul Vitting that inspired the concept, and then meeting architects and delivery companies such as Alliance that actually were brave enough to come along that journey with us. This hasn't been done in many places before, and the flexibility required for the building to deliver what it does needs a brave approach to project planning and partnership. So that's I think my 10 minutes, maybe a little bit more, so apologies Sean, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions and talk more later, but thank you.
No need to apologise, James. That was really interesting and always fabulous to hear what you're doing. So I think you've just ended the presentation. So, Andy, bear with me.
While you're finding your spot.
I'm just finding this. I'm finding the spot for you, Andy. There you go. Do you want to take control or?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
So I'm Andy from LK2 Architects, one of the directors here. We worked with Alliance and Magna Vitae to help deliver the Culture House. It all started when James came along and said, Andy, can you help us, please? We'd like to deliver a Culture House. And my first instinct was, well, what the hell was that? Well, what is it we're actually going to do? So in the first and foremost, it was trying to understand what it actually was, what his aspirations were, and how we were actually going to put this down on paper. So I was fortunate enough to get an invite across to Helsingør and have a look and meet Jens and look at the different offerings that the Culture House offers, the site specifics and the aspirations that it now meets, and the troubles that they had setting it up, which was quite insightful. Again, can talk about that for a whole length of time, but that's not for today. We then started talking about how it's used, what actually goes in there, who it's for, and the impact it has on the wider area, the increased local revenue, which Jens meant the increased partnership opportunities, increased engagement with the education side of things, increased creativity opportunities, happier, more fulfilled lifestyle, and most of all, the social impact and social identity that it had provided for Helsingør. And it was trying to not replicate that, but consider that for a Skegness's point of view, where we were going to locate this. And that took a little bit of understanding of the culture and the demographics of Skegness, of where that was basically going to sit. James mentioned it's an older generation that feel like they're out on the limb, so it was trying to encompass something for them, but then it was also trying to encourage the younger users to be actively involved in it and get them through the doors in order to start engaging with the creative arts and various other bits. There's then the increase in population over the summer months, which I think is about tenfold, and it's how do you engage those people to come and join in or be part of it or have a look at it or know that it's available for them, basically. Then there was understanding James's and Magna Vitae's and East Lindsay's operator aspirations and requirements, which was for flexible spaces. It was creating spaces out of it, creating different uses out of existing spaces, trying to make it suitable for all ages and all demographics, providing longevity and sustainability through what were actually delivered. It then led on to what we could actually deliver, which is sort of the more traditional building terms of the physical challenges, i.e. we're building on a seaside and basically a sandpit. There was very little space in and around the existing theatre. There was various lease issues, budget issues, plus a whole host of additional bits. That sort of led on to some of the challenges that we had and the perceptions that were brought during the voyage of discovery, really. And that was, well, why do it in Skegness? Or, well, it's a theatre. Why are we trying to change a theatre, which is where the creative sort of thinking and trying to do things differently in partnership with Magna Vitae came in. And it's, well, why not do it in Skegness? It's been a place for entertainment for 50, 60, 70 years and the rest. And where better to do it than there? And yes, it has always been a theatre, but it's a prominent building in the middle of an entertainment zone. Why not try and regenerate that, get it used more, get more people engagement using that? One of the other terms that was used was, well, a culture offer won't work. And I think when people say that, it's more of a they see it as a highbrow word. But when you actually break it down, it's probably not. It's just about the history and the place and what people want from it. And as James rightly said, you've got partnerships with the Royal Shakespeare Company, you've got leading singers, Alfie Bose singing there. You've got a theatre of 1,000 seats, which sells out on numerous occasions across the whole year. So there didn't seem to really be a better place than there to do it. What became very clear as we were going through, that there was no actual physical brief, which is a strange sort of place for architects to be in. Usually we get the size of rooms, or we need to accommodate X amount of people, or something has to be of a certain size or a certain shape. But again, the sort of the creative thinking or creative allowance from Magna Vitae and East Lindsey was more so to the end goal rather than what it physically had to facilitate. And it was more we need to provide a facility to allow culture and lead education, increase the well-being of the people that use it, allow community groups to use it, encourage debate, learning, business opportunity within that, which doesn't give you a defined element to build or a defined size of anything. Another one was to improve the connectivity for the non-users to engage with the cultural and creative industries, which to us basically said provide visual intrigue, try and encourage curiosity, visual connection into the building so people can see what's going on, and make them aware of the building with additional signage and additional opportunities for them to see the building and be part of it. There was create opportunity for people to engage, which again was more the visibility side of things. There was remove barriers from preventing people engaging with it. And again, that's where it's sat at the moment. It's sat between, or the theatre's sat between two pubs on Grand Parade, and it was trying to come up with solutions to give people additional opportunities to be part of it, to be aware that they can go into the space, feel safe going into the space, and actually wanting to physically go in and spend some time within there. There was providing additional flexibility for both existing and new spaces. We looked at various options, including VIP suites in the theatre, which could act as meeting rooms. It could act as education rooms. People could watch dress rehearsals, stage setup, etc., etc. We looked at putting windows in into the theatre so you could engage with them there. We looked at libraries, we looked at hotels, we looked at a whole host of different stuff which either got struck out, didn't meet budgetary requirements, didn't meet the need in the end, or various other bits. But there was a whole level of different concepts working with the team to consider and either rule out or rule in the options. And all whilst doing this, we're trying to improve the user experience and the visitor number, which is where the comfier seats in the theatre come in. Trying to relocate all the storage for the theatre out of the concourse and into a specially made store where they can actually stack things better, and basically making the offering for the existing users better quality, and the fact that they want to spend more time within the Culture House rather than going off elsewhere to eat or drink or socialise. So the brief developed over, I think it was about a 4-year period, and in the end it had to align with the budget, which is where Sean and Alliance came in. But at the beginning, when we was looking for the bid, it was what could we do and how big and how far would our aspirations take it? And then it was working backwards from there. Thanks, Sean. That's
Thank you, Andy.
10 minutes, I think.
That's excellent. Thank you very much. I'm going to take control now. So I'm going to quickly run through a couple of elements on the bid and the bid that was made for the capital funding. Explain a bit about that, and then I'm going to go through some of the construction challenges and how we made this hit budget effectively. So an important thing to underline here is that the Embassy Theatre is part of a whole range of interventions that have been delivered by a group of local authorities, not just East Lindsey, but this building is in East Lindsey, but the wider ranging team. So we've got Magna Vitae as the operator who came up with the idea and sowed that seed with the East Lindsey District Council. East Lindsey District Council are part of the Connected Coast, and the Connected Coast is a big project, and it's well worth looking at in terms of their the success rate that they've had in applying for funding into the whole of the Lincolnshire coast, from Grimsby all the way down to Boston. And the South East Lincolnshire Partnership have also been very successful in unlocking funds for both from Towns Fund and Levelling Up. So the bid was made by East Lindsey with the support of Connected Coast and Magna Vitae. They're successful in creating a fund of just over £6 million for the Embassy Theatre and its environs. So the funding came in from Arts Council, £5 million. The £5 million was to cover some external interventions to create a more welcoming and connected space in Skegness round to the pier. So yeah, just over £6 million was developed, was gained from government. And then in terms of construction, as both James and Andy have alluded to, it's a very, very tight site. You're bounded by the sea on one side and the main Grand Parade on the other, and the theatre is tucked here, with all sorts going on around it. So it's a very tight space. We had to be creative in order to meet James and his team's requirements, and therefore the requirements of the Arts Council, in order to include everything that was required to effectively deliver the cultural house. So we effectively, with our team, we refurbished the entire theatre. So the whole theatre has had a refurbishment, some of that quite low level, in order to maintain budget. So, you know, some of the things that we would have loved to have done, we haven't done, but they're part of the ongoing maintenance regime that the council and Magna Vitae have developed for the next few years. But we had to unlock enough, we had to deliver just enough in order to unlock the funding, but also make sure that we'd made a tangible difference to the experience on all levels. So the auditorium was completely refurbished, new lighting, new seating. Hussies have put in an incredible array there that's all automatic, with effectively 3 sets of seats that all come out and all retract at the touch of a button. We've created 2 extensions to the building, one just here and one here. One is focused on customers, so that we have a new bar area and restaurant and seating space with links to the outside. And we've got one here, importantly, for the people that are using the theatre, the actual theatre auditorium itself. So new dressing rooms, new get in and new storage spaces, so that the theatre can deliver more of the larger audience type of events, or larger shows effectively, so that they can sell more tickets, which is half of the business effectively. So we put together a team under the UK Leisure Framework. So East Lindsey appointed us, Alliance Leisure, to create the Culture House. That was done under the UK Leisure Framework. We used Universal Group, and we novated LK2. So LK2 had been on this journey right from day one. So we took Andy and his team into our team, and we carried on designing this as we went along. It was a design and build project. We were supported by Axiom, who are project managers, QS and employer's agent on the scheme, and Hensel's, who did the MEP. MEP was a significant cost on this, even though, as we all know, you don't ever see that part of the refurbishment. It has had a massive impact on the comfort levels and the experience of the users. So just to go through a few of the issues that we had, it is a compact site. We are bounded on all four sides by either roads or other tenants. A critical part of the business for James and the team, and probably every cultural organisation that runs a theatre in this country, is the Panto. We absolutely had a hard deadline to hand over so that the Panto could be delivered. The Panto delivered effectively on a live building site, didn't it, James? So, you know, we'd sectioned off clearly and allowed customers to use some of the areas that had been completed, but they weren't allowed to use areas that obviously were still under construction or under refurbishment. So it was a real challenge for us, and the team together, and that was the team on all sides. We managed to get building regs signed off to allow us to undertake those performances, and we had a very happy team. And to be honest, the customers didn't even know the difference in terms of their experience for their normal theatre. So all done and met those hard deadlines. We always have challenges on those kind of sites with neighbours, but we had some interesting ones on this, and one was that the log flume need to refurbish or repair or maintain their logs every summer or at the end of every season. So we're working on a live site, and we had to enable the log flume owner to bring his equipment in order to take the logs out and do their winter overhaul. So one that I've never come across, and I don't think I'll ever come across again. We also did further. We also had other hard deadlines with the summer season. I think we had Al Murray Pub Landlord was our first gig, and that was the first gig that opened, and we almost opened it without a bar. But the team at Universal did a cracking job in providing everything on time. The existing M&E, as with a lot of these buildings, we take them on. They've been running for 25, 30 years on M&E installations that haven't been replaced or need upgrading. We had to do a significant amount of work in order to work with existing systems that we did keep, but also to try and reduce the carbon footprint and energy consumption on the site. So some real challenges there. And as Andy alluded to, we're effectively building on sand. So the two extensions, although you can see at the top there, that's a relatively small extension, had to be piled to 20 meters, I think. But yeah, we had to pile in some very confined spaces, so small piling equipment in order to get that down. I'm just going to run you through a quick video. Completed project. Okay, so that's how we built it. I'm just going to hand back to James and Jens, who have they're going to talk through some of the successes and challenges we faced on, or sorry, they face in operating, creating, continuing to operate cultural houses. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Sean. And again, I would reiterate some of the work that was done in the build phase of this project was absolutely incredible, allowing us to operate those two big performances. In our business, as people on the call know, revenue is absolutely critical, and to be able to actually maintain the revenue stream of the Panto and a Big Al Murray performance in a live building site was absolutely outstanding partnership work in every area. So going on to successes and challenges from our point of view, I think that the successes are around the partnerships made and the partnerships working. Those are the things that make this really happen and really work. And I think they're the things that bring the whole project to life. What Magna does in our day job is the development of partnerships, and that has allowed the Royal Shakespeare Company, Arts on Prescription, the work with schools, the Young Technicians Academy, and all those conversations with the community to actually happen, and it's been incredibly impactful. The other element is around community pride that Andy was again alluding to in his presentation, that it's incredibly important for Skegness to be able to say we can do this, and we can partner with the Royal Shakespeare Company, and we can have incredible international partnerships and exchanges too. Why shouldn't they? That's been absolutely important and critical impact. I think the other area is around jobs saved and jobs created. This building has saved a number of jobs, but it's created a number of opportunities as well, and it's created countless opportunities for children and young people to be trained and upskilled into the creative industries, which has been incredibly important. I suppose some of the challenges that we've faced is the economic challenges of the times in which we live. Working with Sean Nolan and his team to make sure we got it delivered on time has been invaluable and on budget. But also it's been, as the economic challenges in our economy grow, we've got to actually flex and meet those challenges to deliver the overall project. I think none of us know what local government reorganisation is going to bring and what that might look like. That's something that we need to make sure we're briefed and keep an eye on. And the other challenge, I think, is keeping up momentum. It's hard work, these partnerships that we develop. But in order to make brilliant things happen and to improve communities, momentum is a key thing. And you don't let your guard down. You don't let that momentum shift. And if that happens, it allows other things to follow behind it, which sounds a little bit counterintuitive now. Keep the momentum up and it allows new projects to come. But again, there's always, everyone talks about capacity. I think if sometimes you worry about capacity and the delivery times of things, but if you keep the momentum up, it makes new projects come, which makes revenue come in and opportunities to inspire increase. So the other one is just the energy to keep the momentum up, to keep the work going and the opportunities being delivered. That's me now. Again, I would assume Sean may want questions and stuff later, but I'll just hand over to Jens to probably give a wider, longer time period span of successes and challenges.
Actually, I would say that we've already had the first experience with working together as a festival and working together with the culture house as such. And I think already you can see that there's a big difference in the attitude towards one another, that it's no longer a separated thing. And two things that are absolutely completely contradictory. It's actually something that can work together, which is actually not so normal. It's quite difficult for festivals and theaters to kind of find a balance of working together. But we already did some of the first projects together. And last year we had to basically cancel the whole outdoor festival because of rain, and we could move inside, do it in the theater. And I think that both the festival and the theater actually see it as an opportunity, that it's a culture house and that we can do other stuff if we are working closer together. One of the challenges is, of course, that to get the real education around. But both of us have to learn a lot about to do that. And what I'm saying here about the Embassy Theatre is the same thing in Helsingør. But in Helsingør, we've had a kind of 15 years timeline now, and we have come quite far. That every institution, although they are really, really different, on one hand, we have the national heritage of the Castle of Kronborg. On the other hand, you have a small association like mine, a festival basically. But we actually have forums where we are talking together and where we can actually also do projects together, which is completely new. So I think it's important to keep up the discussion of what should a culture house be? How do we want to develop the Embassy Theatre further? How do we want to develop So Festival further? And what role can the culture house, which to me is something in between, play in that ambition?
Excellent. Thank you, Jens. Thank you, James. Okay, so that's us concluded with our presentations. So thank you, everybody, and thank you particularly to the team that have presented this afternoon with me. That's been really useful. I found that that was really good. So thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Thanks, guys.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Thanks
you.
all.
Bye bye.